Is it compulsory to follow the companions? But the companions differed, so can't we? What do the scholars say about the companions? Stay with us, don't go away.
There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah. His name is Muhammad Mustafa. His name is Muhammad Mustafa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome viewers on to the studio to another episode of the Ark of Noah. I'm Abdullah McIntosh, your host, and with us, of course, is Sheikh Moutasem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, this particular episode we are going to be, of course, once again focusing on the obligation of following the companions.
Yeah.
We've discussed the importance of the companions. Now we must discuss the obligation of following the companions, especially with regards to interpreting the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sheikh, is there only one way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yes, definitely. There's only one way, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it as وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمٌ, and that's the way leading to me. That's my path. So follow it. Don't follow the other paths. So there's only one way, and definitely it's the understanding of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed them to do, and this is what he saw them practicing, and he was pleased with that.
Inshallah. Now, what about those who claim there are multiple ways? We get this from different religions, and everybody in this peace and love, which is I'm not saying that peace and love is bad, of course, but it's this idea that there's a lot of peace and love, and everybody is going to Allah. What about those that say there are multiple ways? Don't worry about it.
What really makes a difference, or what really gets us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is dealing with realities. Now, wishful thinking will not get us anywhere. Now, just trying to sell this, this stuff of love and peace and all that, but if it's not real, that's deception.
Yeah, if there's no basis,
yes,
because this is the way of Islam, isn't it? The basis is proof and evidence, and of course, the idea of peace and love. They are ideals that we all aspire to.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're focusing on the truth. In the absolute sense of it, that
yes,
there is a truth and there is a falsehood,
yes,
and therefore we shouldn't go away from that.
Yes. What's the point of telling people you are upon the truth, you're all right, just stay on your religion, and ultimately on the day of judgment they will realize that you were telling lies? What's the point? That's lack of honesty. That's sheer lying, and we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to tell the people the truth, and they have to choose for themselves. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what all the prophets actually have been sent with. Tell the people the truth. Many people don't like it. Well, that's their own choice. They're responsible for themselves, they're responsible for their choices, for their actions, and ultimately they'll have to deal with the consequences of their choices.
Okay, so we've said that, of course, the first reference for the Muslims is the Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the basis of the Ark. Of course, along with that is the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes.
And we've said that even amongst the Muslims there's differences in the ways that people are following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, now we've established that the most important thing is to look at, when we're looking at the Sunnah, to look at the interpretation of the companions.
Yeah.
What do the scholars say about the importance of the companions?
The scholars upon the truth, they understood the reality, and actually the early scholars of Islam, they really understood very well the necessity of following the companions, because Islam was a way of life. It's not, as we said previously, it's not a theory. Now, once we approach a theory at this day and age, obviously we will carry the package of our culture, our environment, and impose it. So impose it on the Sunnah. So this is why we will come with strange understandings and interpretations of the Quran and the Sunnah. We have to see Islam in its original context. Islam was practiced perfectly the best, and the best way within the level or within the boundaries of humanity was best practice at the time of the companions. So we can see Islam alive or see Islam in action in the life of the companions. This is why the Prophet ﷺ himself says, when he talks about the ummah, this ummah will split. And obviously these are understandings. These divisions, these sects, the basis for the division is different understandings. That my ummah will be divided into 73 sects. All of them will be in the hellfire, except one. The companions asked, which is that one? What is the description of that one that will be saved? The Prophet ﷺ said, they are the ones who are upon what I and my companions are upon today. So this is a clear indication from the Prophet ﷺ. This hadith is Hasan. It's narrated in As-Sunan, the books of As-Sunan. The Prophet ﷺ is making it clear, the only group or the only that will be in paradise are the ones who have the what? The understanding of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. The same way Islam was practiced by the Prophet ﷺ and his companions.
So this, in fact, it's when many people talk about when we talk about fara'id, the compulsory, and we talk about the sunnah, and you hear this a lot amongst the Muslims. Oh, it's only a sunnah. It's only a sunnah. And of course, because what they're saying is, I do the fara'id, I do the obligations, and of course, the sunnah, well, if I did it, if I didn't do it, something else. And then of course, to extrapolate that mentality to the final expression of it, then in fact what you'd have was, well, it's just what the companions did, it doesn't matter. Is it an obligation for us to follow the sunnah and the companions? Is it an obligation on us?
Yes, to answer your question, obviously it's an obligation, because it's an obligation on us to follow the message of Islam that was sent to the Prophet ﷺ. And there is no access that we have to the Sunnah except through the companions and their practice. This is why it's obligatory. But there's a problem with the people who say, I do what's obligatory, and the Sunnah, well, I have choice about that. Well, these people have mixed two types of terminology, because with the scholars of fiqh, Sunnah means recommended. But when we talk about the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we're talking about the general way, the general life of the Prophet ﷺ, his general way in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an obligation to follow. So I hope that people won't mix these two sets of terminology. But to follow the companions is an obligation. Why? Because the only access we have to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to the purity of Islam, is through the companions. Any other understanding is a human interpretation that has no foundation and no basis in history.
So today, of course, as we've been repeating a number of times, there's many different ways, there's many different situations that were faced. But how can we really recognize these people who are Ahlul Sunnah, who are trying to follow the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and how can we recognize that in our scholars and in the people around us, so that we can take from them and we can make relationships with them to push us forward.
Yes, actually, we have to keep the company of the people who are upon that path. Otherwise, we won't be able to follow it. As the Prophet ﷺ says, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih." Each person is upon the same religion as their friends. So we have to hang around with these people if we really aspire to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, how can we recognize them? There are many signs. First of all, they are the people who are so keen to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They are known by many names throughout history. For example, they are known as Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Although some of the people of innovation are calling themselves the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah just to create more confusion. But we have to bring the signs together so we can really recognize them. So generally they are known for following the Sunnah. This is why they are Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Second thing is that they pay great attention to the hadith of the Prophet, the traditions or the narrations from the Prophet. This is why Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, when he was asked about who are Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who are At-Ta'if al-Mansura, the saved sect that the Prophet ﷺ talked about, he said, Hum Ahlul Hadith. They are the people of Hadith, the people who busy themselves studying the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, because they are the ones who are keen to learn the example of the Prophet ﷺ and follow it. So Ahlul Hadith, they are the muhaddithun, the people who busy themselves with the study of the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, learning it, extracting knowledge from it and holding on to it. They are the scholars of hadith, the people of hadith. Another thing, characteristic they are known for is their legacy is continuous from the time of the Prophet ﷺ till today. Because the Messenger ﷺ says, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق لا يضرهم من خالفهم حتى يأتي أمر الله وهم على ذلك. There will always remain, there will always be a group from my nation or from my ummah. They are apparent they're manifest upon the truth. They have the truth, they can defend it. And they will not be harmed by those who let them down until the word of Allah comes. Consider the word, they will always remain. And it means right from the time of the Prophet ﷺ till the end of time, they will always be there. So their understanding will be one. So the group who are upon the truth, their scholars stretch from the time of the Prophet ﷺ till the end of time.
Subhanallah.
So their understanding doesn't change. So at the time of the companions, their understanding is the same. After that, in the 2nd century, the 3rd century, the 4th century, they always have the same fiqh, the same aqidah, the same understanding, the same manhaj approach and methodology. It doesn't change.
So that what you're saying is the scholars here, they are compatible with the eternal realities and the eternal sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's it. It's a continuous chain that never breaks.
Subhanallah.
It's the same religion. This is why they are called Ahlul Hadith, and they are called the Ta'if al-Mansura, and they are called the saved sect because they are the only ones who will be saved from the hellfire.
And can we say that this is the true people who follow Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah?
Definitely, they are the only ones. And by the way, they are known to be the followers of a Salaf, the followers of the righteous predecessors. Sometimes they ascribe themselves to a Salaf. So they say, I am a follower of the Salaf. Or as in the Arabic language, I am a Salafi. Many people think this is a group. It's not a group whatsoever. It's an understanding. Even if you don't know them, even if you don't mix with them, but you have the understanding of the companions, you are upon that way. That's what Islam is. We believe the general Muslims, the general public, the layman Muslim, they are all upon that way of the Salaf, the way of the righteous predecessors.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. We're going to go to a short break. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As everyone knows, today Arabic is considered as very important, very significant language. How can we produce the sound, the state of voicing, place of articulation, and manner of articulation? So in Arabic, the words which are written are pronounced.
We will learn how to write and pronounce Arabic letters correctly in depth. Explanation via board and presentation with many other important factors.
We have today more than 300 million people speak Arabic language. Not only in the Middle East, but you can find a lot of people speak Arabic language in Asia, Europe, North America, and in South America.
What are you waiting for? Grab your notebook and pencil and stay tuned for Learn Arabic at Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Ark of Noah with Sheikh Moutasem, who has just been expounding to us the importance of the companions and that in fact we must be upon the methodology and the same mindset with the same way of approaching deen that in fact the Prophet ﷺ gave to us and that was handed to us through the companions, because as the Sheikh was rightly explaining, that times and cultures change and in fact that these what we've been given, this trust of Islam, is something that is eternal. It doesn't change. It is the same practical guidance for this dunya, this world, and the next world, inshaAllah. Now Sheikh, we were just touching on the fact that this is the methodology that we must follow, and that you mentioned the term Salafi. Now, some of the viewers who may be watching may be quite impacted by that word. There might be some confusion as to what that means.
Yes.
Some terms have been cast around saying this idea of Wahhabi, and that would be trying to label again and turn the right way of following the companions and the Sunnah and essentially Islam into another group.
Yes, we have to admit that some people who ascribe to the way of a Salaf and to the scholars of a Salaf, they have given a very bad example, because they have gone to extremes, and they have started labeling people. You are off the manhaj, and you just based on suspicion, and most of it is personal. Most of it is selfishness. Most of these guys are just after worldly gains, and I'm telling you from personal experience.
And one problem that I see from a Western point of view is, and perhaps in some of the non-Arab countries, is that because you could say that the predominant way of thinking in the people who are practicing religion is to try and follow Islam in its pristine form. That is, in the Arab world, that's been dominant. But of course, in the non-Arab Islamic countries and in the West, because they have other ways of following, or ways that they're following from the subsequent generations, or the collection of different people in the West, then the idea of this following the original version of Islam is become a label and a group itself. Now that's a problem.
Yes, and this has to do with the historical background of it. Just the example that one of the great scholars of our time, Sheikh Al-Albani, gave was, he used to bring a white sheet of paper, and he used to ask, what is the color of this sheet? People would say white. Okay? Then he would start drawing circles on it with red, totally red, blue, green, yellow, burgundy, etc. Okay, getting these colors. Then ask people, what is the color of this page? They won't be able to answer. So what happens? Someone who knows, if someone walks in, tell him, what color is this paper? He would say red, green, and name all the colors around. That's a very fresh view. But for someone who knows the background, he saw the sheet when it was white and how the colors were introduced, he would tell you, this sheet is white, but later on you drew on it, for example, a red circle, yellow circle, etc. Now that's exactly with Islam. We are called Muslims, and we are supposed to call ourselves Muslims and nothing but that. We're not supposed to wear labels. Allah says, Huwa sammakumul muslimin. Allah gave you the name of Muslims. We're not supposed to wear names. We're not supposed to wear labels. Our name is Muslims. Our label is Muslims. But what happens is that, for example, the Rafidah came with, for example, a green dot or green circle. And new things started to label themselves. They started to add. The people of Ahlul Sunnah were all called Muslims. Only the people of innovation were giving themselves labels. The Khawarij, the Mu'tazila, the Asha'ira, they were named after people or after a certain action. But later on, when it was all a mixture, there was a state of chaos and confusion. You would come and ask a person, what are you? I'm a Muslim. Are you Sunni or Rafidi? Are you Mu'tazili? Are you what kind of Muslim you are? Because everybody is saying we're Muslim. So it became, they had to, people of Ahlul Sunnah, they had to give a distinctive feature that would really make them stand out. And in a nutshell, tell the people exactly what we stand for. So actually it started not as a label, and it shouldn't be, what I see it shouldn't be used so much as a label, but as a description. Now,
a description of the way to follow Islam, the methodology, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is. And this is how it was used. For example, Imam al-Dhahabi in Siyar Alam al-Nubala was describing Ad-Daraqutni, one of the scholars of hadith. He said he was a Muslim upon the Sunnah. He didn't go into philosophy and ilm al-kalam, and he was a person, he said he followed the pristine message of Islam. He followed what the companions were upon. He said, وَكَانَ سَلَفِيًّا, and he was Salafi. He doesn't mean there was a group that was named so and so. No, he was saying that he held on to the pristine message of Islam, to the original message of Islam, which was the way of the companions. That was exactly what it meant. And until today, this is what it should mean. That I am not following any of these groups. I'm following the original Islam. This is what the word should mean. And it shouldn't be like a circle or membership that you have to become part of us, you have to agree with us. No, hold on to the message of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. This is what you are. This is what Islam is.
SubhanAllah, very important message, Shaykh.
Yes.
And with that, the subsequent problems of people who are ascribing to themselves, calling themselves or labeling themselves, Salafi, and then when people are looking into their actions, we're finding that some of them, not all, of course. I'm not suggesting all, but there's a portion there who they're calling themselves Salafi, but really their actions and their character is not warranting that. What would you say to them, those who are?
To these brothers, we give advice that if I say I'm following the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, it means you have to follow them in everything, not take some part and leave other parts.
And Allah says that in Quran, isn't it?
Yes, obviously, yes. So what we do, follow the way of the companions in everything. Follow it in aqeedah, follow it in fiqh, follow it in manners and character, follow it in etiquettes, even in the way you advise, you follow the way of the companions. And some people think it's a very superficial thing. Take any incident that happened with the companions, because probably some of the companions in a certain situation they were harsh. But why? Because they knew they needed harshness here. But this person takes this incident and he generalizes it. So he uses harshness in every situation. Brother, we say, brother, this is a very deficient understanding. You need more knowledge to follow the way of the companions, because they knew when to use kindness, when to use harshness, and when to deal. They adapted to different situations intelligently.
And that's interesting. You should pick that example because, a lot of people have this thing that in Islam it's peace and it's love, and of course it is. This is the essence, as we said before. These are the ideals that are. But of course, sometimes there's a means to an end, and sometimes you do need to be steadfast and firm against certain things. But again, people must be very much aware of what they're getting themselves into before they go into that.
Just Abdullah, before we go to anything else, you mentioned the word Wahhabi. Some people use this. This is a label that first was used by the English during English colonialism against one of the great Imams of Ahlus Sunnah, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in the area of Najd. And the reason they did that because they could not water down his message and his call. And we say what he was upon, what we are upon, is the same thing the companions were upon. What the great scholars of Islam, what Imam Abu Hanifa was upon, what Imam Malik was upon, what Imam Shafi'i was upon, what Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was upon, what Ibn Taymiyyah was upon, what An-Nawawi, and generally speaking, was upon. These are this is the same methodology. We're not bringing anything new. Imam Al-Albani, Imam Ibn Baz, Imam Ibn Uthaymeen, this is what they were upon. It's the same message. So it was not originated by a certain person, it was originated by the Prophet, carried by his companions, handed down until it reached us today.
And it was only revived by
these scholars.
These scholars,
definitely.
So Sheikh, we're going to come to an end in a couple of minutes, but I'd just like to spend the last part of this episode focusing on if you can help us to have a zeal to practice and bring in a practical way the Sunnah, because as you said rightly before, it's not just a theory in a book. It's something that's got to come alive. What are we missing? What are we not doing?
We're missing so many things. We're missing the knowledge, because we have the knowledge and the dedication. Wallahi, when I sit in some of the circles of knowledge with some of my teachers in the masjid, and mashallah, a very good number of brothers who are upon the Sunnah there, wallahi, I feel we're living at the times of the companions. Not in terms of technology. It has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about the purity, the beauty, the dedication, the sincerity, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi, sometimes you feel the angels are there. You feel the angels are there. What we have to do is sit with the scholars, learn our deen, go back to Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and see how the Prophet, how the companions, and how the Tabi'een, how they lived. Our early generations were just amazing. But we underestimate them because we don't have a direct approach to them. We don't have a direct link with them. We don't go back to their narrations to study their ways of life. They were intelligent, they were dedicated, they were well organized, they were just amazing people. But we have to get direct link with them. And this is my advice to myself and my brothers and sisters.
So really to go back and try to understand the greatness and the amazing achievements and the aspirations that these people achieved.
It was a different level.
SubhanAllah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh,
You're
once again
welcome.
for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope you have at home enjoyed our episode in the Ark of Noah. We hope you will join us again for the very last episode, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah. His name is Muhammad Mustafa. His name is Muhammad Mustafa.
To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dealing with realities. Now, wishful thinking will not get us anywhere. Now, just trying to sell this, this stuff of love and peace and all that, but if it's not real, that's deception.
Yeah, if there's no basis,
Yes.
because this is the way of Islam, isn't it? The basis is proof and evidence, and of course the idea of peace and love, they are ideals that we all aspire to.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're focusing on the truth in the absolute sense of it, that there
Yes.
is a truth and there is a falsehood,
Yes.
and therefore we shouldn't go away from that.
Yes, what's the point of telling people, you are upon the truth, you're all right, just stay on your religion, and ultimately on the day of judgment they will realize that you were telling lies. What's the point? That's lack of honesty. That's
Is it compulsory to follow the companions? But the companions differed, so can't we? What do the scholars say about the companions? Stay with us, don't go away.
There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah.
sheer lying, and we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to tell the people the truth, and they have to choose for themselves. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what all the prophets actually have been sent with. Tell the people the truth. Many people don't like it. Well, that's their own choice. They're responsible for themselves, they're responsible for their choices, for their actions, and ultimately they'll have to deal with the consequences of their choices.
Okay, so we've said that, of course, the first reference for the Muslims is the Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the basis of the Ark. Of course, along with that is the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes.
And we've said that even amongst the Muslims there's differences in the ways that people are following the Sunnah of alaihi wasallam. Sheikh, is there only one way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yes, definitely. There's only one way, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it as وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمٌ, and that's the way leading to me. That's my path. So follow it. Don't follow the other paths. So there's only one way, and definitely it's the understanding of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, because this is what the Prophet ﷺ instructed them to do, and this is what he saw them practicing, and he was pleased with that.
Inshallah. Now, what about those who claim there are multiple ways? We get this from different religions, and everybody in this peace and love, which is I'm not saying that peace and love is bad, of course, but it's this idea that there's a lot of peace and love, and everybody is going to Allah. What about those that say there are multiple ways? Don't worry about it.
What really makes a difference, or what really gets...
His name is Muhammad Mustafa. His name is Muhammad Mustafa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, viewers, on to the studio, to another episode of the Ark of Noah. I'm Abdullah McIntosh, your host, and with us, of course, is Sheikh Moutasem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, this particular episode we are going to be, of course, once again focusing on the obligation of following the companions. We've discussed the importance of the companions. Now we must discuss the obligation of following the companions, especially with regards to interpreting the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu